But for the most part, the truth is the truth and the truth ain't gonna lie. Hey y'all, welcome and or welcome back to my channel. My name is Janae, if you didn't know, and today's video is another true crime episode. So if you're ready, let's go. All right, y'all. So nails bald-headed gone. I told y'all that was the last time y'all was gonna see that set in the last video. I might end up doing them today, maybe not. I really don't know. Anyway, got coffee in my coffee mug today because it's 9 o'clock in the morning and I need my coffee. And yeah, other than that, we can go ahead and hop right into today's case. And if you've been here for a little minute now, then you know that we are going from the hiking trails to the ski resorts of America in alphabetical order. So from Alabama to Wyoming, and today we are in Oregon. Now, if you're anything like me, then the only thing that you think about when you hear the word Oregon is the game Oregon Trail. And baby, let me tell you, I used to tear that game up when we had indoor recess. That was my bag. So naturally, when it was time to find a case for Oregon, I looked up the Oregon Trail murders. And for the most part, the only thing that I learned during those searches is that majority of the Oregon Trail murders are fictitious. But then one of my searches led me to this case. And when I started reading the details, I just knew I had to cover it. So Deborah Lee Phillips was born on June 4th, 1958 in Florence, Oregon, to her parents Gloria and Robert Phillips. And Gloria and Robert had 4 kids, 2 boys and 2 girls. So there was Deborah, who I just told you about. Then there was Calvin, Robert Jr., and Amy. And while Deborah was growing up, her family moved around quite a bit because her dad was in the military. And so in addition to living in many different states across the U.S., Deborah also lived in places like the Philippines and Guam. Even though Guam is a U.S. territory, you still got to cross the ocean to get there. She loved to be outside doing outside stuff like hiking, skiing, or camping. And because she lived in all these different places, Debbie was a very cultured individual. And even though she experienced all these different places and these different cultures, Debbie's heart always brought her back to her home state of Oregon, especially after she met a man named Robert Atrops. And she and Robert dated a little bit before the two of them got married on June 6, 1987. Just real quick, something that I noticed, Debbie got a lot of Roberts in her life. She got her daddy, her brother, and now her husband. Irrelevant to the story, but I just thought about it. Anyhow, after the two of them got married, they both felt like the next step was a baby. And I don't know what their fertility situation was looking like, but I do know that they ended up adopting a baby girl in early 1988. And maybe that was their plan all along, to adopt first and then have biological children. Nonetheless, baby girl was adopted in early 1988 and her name is Rayana. Now, there are very little reports on this entire case, and so the ins and outs of Debbie's and Robert's marriage are not talked about pretty much at all. But it had to be some type of bad, because in June of 1988, just 1 year after the two of them got married, they separated. And after they separated, Robert stayed in Sherwood, and then Debbie moved with baby Rayana to Salem. But they did maintain a co-parenting relationship. So even though they was an hour away from each other, Robert still regularly saw Rayana. And so nothing seemed amiss or out of the ordinary on November 29th, 1988. Baby Rayana, who was 8 months old at the time, was with her dad while her mom went to work at Weller's Incorporated. Now, on this particular day, after work, Debbie had a hair appointment scheduled. And this particular salon visit was for a haircut. And this is something that Debbie regularly did. She kept herself put together. And by the looks of the pictures that I've been seeing, Debbie didn't play about being that girl. And being a mama wasn't going to stop her from being that girl. And after she was done getting her hair done, Debbie was set to pick up Rayana from Robert's house. And Robert knew roughly around the time that Debbie should have been getting there. But 2.5 hours passed post the time Debbie was scheduled to come. And he started getting worried because this wasn't like Debbie. Debbie would never just not get Rayana. And remember, this is 1988. Robert can't just call Debbie's cell phone. She ain't got one. And so it was after that 2.5 hour mark with no Debbie that Robert decided to call the police and report his wife missing. And the search was on immediately because this was a 30-year-old new mom. And so they got a description of Debbie and a description of her car as well. She was driving a black 4-door Honda Accord. And so police all over the area was looking for her and or her car. And 2 days later, on December 1st, 1988, Debbie's car would be found. So it was a Beaverton police officer who was out just patrolling the area doing his job at around 8:45 in the morning when he came across what appeared to be an abandoned black 4-door Honda Accord. And like I said, everybody in the area was looking for this car. And so when he seen it, his antennas perked up because he knew that there was a missing person associated with this car. And this car was parked next to a wooded area down a dead-end road where some construction was going on. And so the spot in which it was located was already kind of suspicious. And this officer knew that this was possibly Debbie's car. However, when he went to go check, the license plates had been removed. So they couldn't readily identify the car as hers. And I'm not sure which one came first, the running of the VIN number or the search of the car, but they ended up running the VIN number and it came back as Debbie's car. And they also searched the car, and inside of the car they found Debbie's keys. And sadly, when they made it to the trunk of the car, they did end up finding a deceased Debbie. And so they sent her body off for an autopsy. And once the autopsy was performed, it was determined that her cause of death was strangulation by manner of homicide. But again, this is 1988. Technology wasn't exactly on the road just yet. But they collected what they could and stored it in evidence lockers and continued on with the investigation. And obviously, the prime suspect was going to be Robert because this is her estranged husband. They separated. They don't even live in the same part of town. Like, sir, you the top of the list. So they investigate him. They interrogate him. But they didn't have nothing to be able to charge him. And so he was set free. And after exhausting all their leads and going through all their suspects, they came up with nothing, and the case would end up going cold. And this case stayed cold for 32 years until 2020 when a cold case unit reopened the case. And by this point, they got that good futuristic technology now. And so they're able to test way more than they were able to test in 1988. And so they go back into these evidence lockers, and Debbie's coat, which was collected at the original crime scene, was still in the evidence lockers, and it still has some mud, debris, and all kinds of other stuff on it. And so they tested some of the mud that was on her jacket. And they tested that against some mud from Robert's residence in Sherwood, the place where he was living at the time of her disappearance. And it was a match. And unless she was just outside his house rolling around all willy-nilly, there really shouldn't have been no reason for mud to be on her coat the way it was. And there was some other stuff that was collected and tested as well. And so they bring Robert back in for questioning. And during this questioning, they note significant discrepancies in what he's saying now from what he said back in 1988. And that's kind of suspicious because, yeah, some of the small details might change. But for the most part, the truth is the truth and the truth ain't gonna lie. And so you should be able to tell the story of what happened that day pretty much exactly, no matter how long, no matter how much time has passed, right? Okay, so with all of this new evidence against him, Robert Atrops is arrested in 2023 at 70 years old. Now, Robert decided to plead not guilty and ended up going to trial in April of 2025. So this is fairly recent. And during the trial, the prosecution gave their theory on a motive, and they pretty much said that Robert found out that Debbie was talking to somebody else and he killed her for it. And they came to this conclusion because during the initial investigation, they talked to some of Debbie's friends and family. And Debbie did tell them that she was in a new relationship. She was entertaining somebody else. And she said that Robert had pressed her about the new guy. And she said that she was afraid that Robert would kill her. And so, yeah, that's how they came up with that theory that he found out and he didn't like it. Now, the defense, they said that they got the wrong guy. Robert is not their guy. There were actually two other suspects who they was initially looking into as well. And one of those suspects' name was John Pearson. And John Pearson, he was looked into and he was eliminated. But then in 2023, when they charged Robert with Debbie's murder, John Pearson was called to be a witness in his trial. And that trial was set to happen in, I want to say, the fall of 2024. However, the trial was postponed till 2025 because John Pearson committed suicide. And so because of this, they decided to postpone the trial. And the defense said that before John took his own life, he talked to his family and he told his family that he was afraid that the police was going to try to pin Debbie's murder on him and that his DNA would be found everywhere. And basically, their defense was to blame it on the dead guy, pretty much. But the defense slammed that argument because they said that John not only cooperated fully with the investigation the whole time in 1988 and in 2023, But he also had a solid alibi for that night as well. And so they was like, child, you tried it, please. In the end, Robert was found guilty of second-degree murder. And on July 8th, 2025, he was sentenced to life with the possibility of parole after 25 years. And in my opinion, you might as well just go ahead and call that life without, because that man was going to be 96 in 25 years. Now, I really do feel bad for Rihanna because she was only 8 months old when her mom was murdered. And to be honest with you, I don't think she think her daddy did it. Because during his or after his sentencing, she spoke about how he stepped up and he became a mother and a father to her, and how he was just the most loving, most caring dad in the world. And I mean, I get it, Rihanna. I understand, because here you are, 37 years old. You lived your whole life. You know your dad for who your dad is to you. But in my opinion, raising Rihanna by himself was the goal the whole time. Because seeing that Debbie was moving on and that she was actually with somebody else, he potentially feared another man raising his daughter. And then also, I just think he didn't want to see Debbie happy or with nobody else anyway. But still, I'm just saying, I think the goal was to raise Rihanna by himself and not have another man do it. It's just my personal opinion. But yeah, y'all, that is all I have for today's case. Thank you all so very much for watching. Let me know what you thought about today's case down in the comments. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you all in the next one. No, my girls and them, I gotta give them up. My playing days is over. I gotta hang it. I gotta know, yeah. He don't let nobody touch his camera. And Gloria and Robert had 3 kids in addition to Gloria. No. Why is it so hard today? This is a short case, and I am having trouble. Oh, excuse me. This is gonna be like real tough to edit. Damn. Yeah. Damn it. I found you. Miss New Booty. Get it together. Bring it back to me. And after Debbie was done getting her hair done, she was set to pick up Rihanna from, I keep wanting to call this man Frank, when he came across what appeared to be an abandoned, why can't I say that? And they tested that against mud that was at, I keep trying to call, oh, his name is Robert. At the time of her disappearance, where he lived then. Am I saying that right? I don't know. Anyway,